I can't believe we're finally doing it.
We're doing it.
Yeah, we're good. We got the desert.
Yep.
We got a bunch of incredibly smart people who are trying to like figure out the course of humanity, being faced with an existential threat that doesn't actually come from like an outside force, but actually like kind of like a mishmash of like the powers that be.
We have a young man who's very smart and his dad who has a beard.
Yeah, his dad does have a beard, and like his mom's pretty cool. She teaches him all the Bene Gesserit skills. And why do you make that face?
Okay. We literally just stopped filming about Indiana Jones. So if you haven't seen it, go see that, or don't. Who cares? But remember when we said we would be doing Asteroid City by Wes Anderson, Cameron?
But you promised.
Don't worry. Okay. Yeah, we're going to eventually talk about Dune, which I assume is what you're talking about.
Yeah. The Bene Gesserit, famous for being in all Wes Anderson films.
Exactly. So yeah, don't worry. When Dune Part 2 comes out, closer to that, we are going to break down. We're probably going to spoil all of the
I'm going to
movies.
dismantle 6 books
exactly
in front of me.
God,
You're going to watch
stuff
them
it into my head.
Yeah.
Instead of the contentious film that we just brought up, in which you and I had some differing opinions, I think you and I have some very similar opinions about this lovely film by Wes Anderson called Asteroid City.
Asteroid City? Good.
Is good. I enjoyed it very much. As of The French Dispatch, there was a moment where we were watching The French Dispatch, and I can't turn off my goopy goblin bullshit about filmmaking, where like if I'm watching a movie and something reminds me of something film related, like something that maybe I've done in the past or that I've seen in whatever, like something that makes me think about filmmaking, it immediately, like, I lean forward in my seat and I'm like now picking things apart like a freaking Terminator.
You and your case.
It's bullshit. And in The French Dispatch, I remember sitting there and I forgot what part it was. I think it was Owen Wilson on a bicycle. And I just like hit the recliner in my chair. And it was, the rest of the movie was just, it was a vacation for my brain. And it was, God, that movie is, in my opinion, so perfect. A perfect distillation of Wes Anderson. And so similarly in this movie, just watching it, I'm just like, oh, this,
Yes.
I'm just here to let his oeuvre wash over me.
Yeah, so let's start with addressing, so Asteroid City is Wes Anderson's latest foray into proving to everyone that he can be weird and quirky and still make a better movie than you. I think like a lot of people have been like, this is the weird one. This is too weird. This is weird for me. At which I would say, then why'd you come to Wes Anderson films?
Exactly. It made me think that like everybody that had seen other Wes Anderson films saw them like after the 10-minute mark. Because like all, at least Grand Budapest Hotel, French Dispatch, like the more recent ones have a framing device that gets you to think of the movie in a different way, where you're like, oh, this isn't just a story that's happening. It's a story framed about something. The French Dispatch was about a newspaper similar to the New Yorker, and the Grand Budapest Hotel was a guy telling the story of a hotel, and then the book that was written about the guy that told the story, and then a girl reading that book. Yeah. You know, there are like layers of obfuscation that make it interesting and fantastical. And this one in particular is a radio. No, not even radio.
Yeah. So just the spoilers.
And we'll do deeper spoilers later. Like we'll start off with just simple stuff.
But Asteroid City, the entire premise is Edward Norton plays a writer.
Yes.
Who is making a screenplay for a play. So first you're seeing Edward Norton creating the play at various moments. Then you see the play executing, like the events around the play. And then the actual in-color parts of the movie are the play itself.
I would say that we need to go one layer deeper, which is we start off with Bryan Cranston, which was a beautiful surprise to me.
Delicious.
That he is doing a televised thing similar to like War of the Worlds, where he's like, on this stage, you will see a work of fiction. And that he is the host talking about, like, so he's recounting Edward Norton's story and all the actor stories. And then that story is of a play, and that play is Asteroid City. So like the layers deep are that we are not even seeing Asteroid City technically. We are, but we're seeing also the context around it and by which the actors portraying it, what they were also going through to make it happen. And what happens to Edward Norton's character and what all this other stuff. So it's so many other layers deep that it's a fun and quirky thing, but it also makes you think like, what the fuck's happening? What am I even watching? And it has led to a lot of really interesting discourse online that like, I've just started watching videos and I'm just like, wow, this is a completely different interpretation than I even thought, just because of how many different things are happening in this movie.
Here's how I understand, because I saw someone basically comparing the Grand Budapest, French Dispatch, and then Asteroid City to Christopher Nolan films.
Oh my God. This is Dark Knight trilogy?
Yeah, it's like
Hell
basically
yeah.
like he made the Grand Budapest Hotel. That's his like peak content.
Sure.
And then he's like, all right, well, now I'm going to deconstruct the like time tropes and like get really weird with it. And that's his Tenet.
Okay.
And then this is his Oppenheimer.
Which there was plenty of explosions, there's plenty of nukes in this movie.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
the point was like, this is like, we're going to get weird.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so like, obviously Oppenheimer hasn't come out yet. I'm very excited for it. But like, I get what they were talking about, which is like, if this is your first Wes Anderson film,
Good luck.
yeah, there's lots of different times Wes Anderson tries to allude to how a character is quirky, but their talents emphasize that like the quirkiness is not an accident, it is earned.
Like precocious.
Yeah, like he does that a lot, like in Fantastic Mr. Fox when he's introducing Christopherson and also the son. There's that in who's the painter Benicio del Toro's character?
Yeah. Mhm.
In
French
where
Dispatch.
it's like if you can paint something that you're supposed to paint, then when you paint something weird, that's very intentional because otherwise you just painted it normally.
Yeah.
But my point is, with those examples, the emphasis here is like he's saying I could just keep making Grand Budapest hotels,
Sure.
but it just gets samey. So instead of just becoming the same, I'm going to just try something really different.
Yes. And so as a quick, and the funny thing about this movie is you could boil the plot, like the Asteroid City plot, into like a paragraph, which is a family and a bunch of groups of people come to the Asteroid City for a ceremony for all of these young and up and coming smart kids so they can win a scholarship, and all of them are getting an award. Then aliens show up because of unforeseen, like all of the actual engineers didn't realize that there was like a message being beamed down about this. Aliens show up, take an asteroid, becomes a quarantine area, and everybody's like, what the fuck is going on? They all canoodle, and then they're getting ready to break quarantine, and the alien shows up again, and God, it's so good. They do another quarantine, and then the quarantine is lifted, and they all go on their separate ways. That's everything. That's basically all that happens. But that's not the fun of a Wes Anderson movie. A fun of a Wes Anderson movie is the delivery of each character to be this like robot that has like seemingly no emotions, is just kind of like perfectly framed in this perfect square box, and that every single moment is just like a painting that you're just like looking at the symmetry of it, and everything that they say is like comedically timed so perfectly that you're just like it breaks your like convention of what should be happening. And it's so it just makes you the entire time just feel like you're in a museum seeing like different pieces of art back to back, and that it has the through line of all these different characters that are like connecting in different ways, and it's just nice. It's just good. But then there are all these other themes. So what do you want to dig into first?
I think maybe it'll help to start with a quick recap of how the movie is presented.
Sure.
And then digging into how each part of it is amazing and perfect in every single way.
The different inception layers.
Yes.
Yeah.
The first inception layer we get throughout the movie. And of course, we already said spoilers, so I don't want to hear
Spoiler time. It's very good. Go see it.
Yes. We obviously have like the zoomed out Bryan Cranston presenting what I thought this was going to be a War of the Worlds thing.
Yeah, right.
Where it's going to be like people watching this and taking it too seriously.
It alludes to that, of course, with like the telenovela, not telenovela, but like the broadcast feeling like War of the Worlds sounding, but also that that the movie's about aliens. There's an element of that in the trailers. And I felt like I was going to see, Steven Spielberg had his own take on War of the Worlds. It's supposed to be Wes Anderson's, everybody's a prim and proper person. They're like, oh no, an alien, whatever shall I do kind of thing. When it's not even remotely close to that. It's just also about another close encounter, a completely separate thing. And the play that you see that is we're seeing a broadcast of Bryan Cranston recounting how the play even happened.
It's important to note everything's black and white to give you a sense that it's not the story of Asteroid City. So that's actually pretty surface level. It is the framing device by which all the other frames will now be nested.
And literally a framing device. It is in a 4:3 aspect ratio, as if it is televised. Like
Exactly.
It's a piece of television happening. And it's also cropped in. It's not just like filling the frame. It is a cropped in small square so that we're kind of in the headspace of like, oh, this would have been watched on a big tube TV in the 70s, 60s.
And Wes Anderson loves to do that. He loves to play with aspect ratios in a way you like almost never notice.
Oh yeah.
So like he's going to jump. I think this one is just 4x3 and then 6 or 22.3 by 1.
I think, I don't know if it was actually letterboxed like, CinemaScope, or if it was just 16 by 9 and 4 by 3. But yeah, you get the two. Like one is this is the film aspect ratio, and the other one is this is the TV aspect ratio.
Yeah.
So you have a very distinct difference.
But that televised play is now everything that's happening is about to become live. So now we're getting tastes of the characters around it. So you meet Edward Norton and his character about like this idea of Asteroid City, and he's trying to create this piece of art that is going to be some sort of like, I don't remember if it's like he's like at the end, because the point is like he's dying. The character's dying, and so he's like trying to create his penultimate piece of art. It's not just a matter of him trying to write a story that feels good. You even get tastes into the different actors showing up, and like how are you making sure that you are doing justice to the cast and characters. There's one guy who literally is supposed to come to his house and audition for the main character role. Yeah, the Augie character. What was his name?
Jason Schwartzman.
Yeah, it's like this whole little bit of him showing up, bringing ice cream. It's like giving us this like tiny character moment that's supposed to humanize Edward Norton's character, while also tell us why this guy is like perfect for it.
Well, that and the actor Jason Schwartzman, who plays Augie and then also plays, I forgot if they give that actor a name, is our kind of point of view character. He's the first character that we see in the very, very beginning, who's just smoking his pipe and getting his car fixed. But then once we go back in time, we also see that he is kind of one of the drivers behind the movie. The guy's writing the play, but then he comes in, he's just like, I would like to beat this. Here's my kind of gift to you. Here's this ice cream to get you to like me. And I want to be your main character.
And it's very cute. And they kiss.
Yeah, they do a big kiss.
And then we also get this a little later with Scarlett Johansson, where it's like her character is supposed to be very, very like fantastic artist who's having trouble getting along with the director, but she's also like the most ideal person to bring this role to life. And some things there, some context
well,
they were
like he says in his letter to her that they had a mentor-mentee relationship, and that he did something or she did something that caused her to quit, and that he then sent the understudy for one of the characters, to Woodrow, I think it was the child's character, to come and talk to him because the play's about to begin and he can't go. But then he had 3 different versions of the speech, and each of them was kind of, though they're ridiculous and funny, they all do still draw at the point that he knows her. He's like, oh, if she's hop raving mad, or if she's crying, or if she's
defiantly ready to like not come back.
Yes, exactly. And so she reads all of them, but especially the very last one was him kind of begging that he's like, if you don't do this, no harm, no foul, I get it. But if you do this, it's going to be an incredible piece of art for you to participate in, and it will be worthy of your talents. And then she comes back, and they remark that like they got back just in time for it to be like 2 hours before opening night. And then it works out, and she's in it. We see her as the character. And so it's really nice. And it's a good moment of drawing back to like what even her participation is in it. And as it kept happening, I'm like, are they going to do like every character like this? That'd be kind of cool. But I don't remember too many other characters outside of
then like, so that's the upper level. There's also the Margot Robbie part at the very end where it's like, what is my character's motivation? I'm gonna get back into this when we get into the like what we thought were the big brain moments of it. That was like a like nice kind of little button at the end for that kind of thing. And then we dive all the way down to Asteroid City.
We also have Adrian Brody's character.
Oh yeah,
who I think he's supposed to be the director.
He's the director.
Yeah, and that he the entire time it's so good because each of these individual characters, we're learning about how the Asteroid City movie, theatrical thing, but it is a play in the form of a play. Like everybody talking about how the play was made is also acting like they're in a play. It's a set on a stage. So he's up there and he's doing like a boxing. And it's the stupidest shit you've ever seen.
Well, it's even funnier because the punching bag is right next to him.
Like
if he moved 5 feet to his left, he would have been hitting the bag, but instead he's just like doing a bit.
Yeah, and it's talking about like his interpersonal life and how he got there and why he's doing this and his family and what's going on with him. But yeah, it's showing that like each of these individual characters, like the actors portraying the characters had something happening in their own life that led to them doing this thing.
Yeah.
So it weirdly reminded me of like a 60-minute segment after a movie. Like if ABC played a movie and then immediately after it had like a talking dead about it where each of the characters, like each of the actors talks about like, well, actually when I was doing that, blah, blah, blah. So it was weirdly, it felt like that. It felt like a televised explanation of the movie you just saw.
And then the actual play, the like driving plot of the movie has to do with this family that's coming to Asteroid City so that their son can attend this science summer camp award thing put on by the government. This is like where we're starting to see our like cast of not really like related characters coming together in unconventional ways, and we see all the different families of all the different kids and all the things happen, and then an alien shows up, and then they're quarantined, and you see like the different levels of like kids rebelling against people in power, and you see the like kids being like very smart and inventive in ways the adults aren't. You see that like Wes Anderson is the king of just like that pure young love where like the two characters are just staring at each other for just like a little too long.
Moonrise Kingdom.
And it's just like everything's just a little awkward because they've never been in love before, but they know they're in love. It's just I don't know how he directs actors to always get that. I think it's a combo of like his storytelling and also the quality of actor he seems to attract to his projects, but god damn, it gets me every time.
Each of those individual kids has like their own thing going on in the background. The one kid that's always asking people to dare him to do stuff. And then he has this like mask off moment where the dad's like, why do you keep asking us to dare you to do dumb bullshit? And he's like, well, maybe it's because if I don't do these things, you guys are going to forget about me. It's like,
it won't matter.
Yeah, exactly. And then they're like, well, what did you want? Okay, what do you want us to dare you do? Go climb a cactus? Don't do that, please.
And that's like his delivery is incredible. Every layer, especially everything in Asteroid City, the like situational comedy is always perfect. Like it's so weird to think about when you're watching Asteroid City, you're not watching characters. You're watching characters portrayed by actors portraying actors who are portraying actors.
Yes. Yeah.
And so like there's like this moment where Scarlett Johansson's character and Jason Schwartzman's character are like rehearsing lines for a movie that she's got to be in. And he says like, I do this as like, yeah, my wife died. It was like, yeah, use that. And so this is like one of the main like times you see them hint at like how everyone's wearing masks the whole movie. Until like that one scene with the alien shows up the second time. This is him letting it slip where it's like he's been stoic and not sure how he's going to tell his kids about it, but then he just tells them, and everyone's just kind of chugging along, and like now he's getting like deeply emotional. So you're thinking like, wow, this is like showing us inside that character. But then you remember like there's an actor who has to pretend to be this guy, pretending not to be this guy. Like it adds that layer of abstraction to how each character is supposed to be perceived, whether or not the actor is actually acting with that same level of depth, I guess.
Well, and similarly, we have a moment with Scarlett Johansson, like later on in the movie, where everybody's going through it from the quarantine, and then we just cut over to like he opens the window and she's like laying there, and there are pills on the ground. We're like, oh, she died, and her eyes are open. Like, so how's it going? Like immediately, like kind of breaks the character, and that we have that like that layer of abstraction again, where we're like, oh, is that the mask again? Yeah, it's the mask again. She's acting. This is part of that play that she's still doing. Each character is playing out what they think they should be doing. And it takes them to be in 10 days of quarantine and then to be surprised by another 10 days of quarantine to really show their masks. Kind of like COVID, if you think about it.
Oh, wait. I was the real world parallels for this movie. Who would have known?
Exactly.
Bryan Cranston also narrated COVID. We all remember that.
And I love that. Yeah, the town is so small that like the camera sitting in one place on a wide lens could just pivot on a track around and cover the entire town. Cool. This is everything. That's great. We know exactly what's going on. And that in one wide shot, you can get the entire town and the plots of land they're trying to sell stock in behind it. And each of the characters is hiding something, like a part of them that gets to be revealed. The other two that are kind of side characters are the other precocious young lady. The actress Scarlett Johansson is like her big hero, and so like maybe in another life she would have actually been an actor, but her parents of course push her to be an engineer. And that other character who is rebellious in a way that he calls his friend to leak about the alien, and so he has this like rebellious thing to him while like all the other kids are like playing along, but he's just like, it's like, I'm not gonna tell you anything, coppers. It's like really good. And then we finally have Woodrow, and I forgot the other girl's name, like his love interest name. But yeah, both of them are reconciling with their affinity for each other. And so much of this movie resonates with us, but we don't consider how much it means to the characters and what that means for the story, is that they're both looking through the telescope. It says, I feel more at home out there than I do on Earth, kind of thing. And then we see that both of those characters are looking for an escapism, like through science, than living with their family and whatever bullshit's going on.
I mean, that's the core of the film. It's not worth it to describe what happened sequentially. It's more just like, you kind of just got taken the movie.
Yeah.
And then decide what you want it to mean for you in a way.
Exactly.
But now we're going to tell you what to think.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
I will say, I want to start by saying, like, there is a technical depth to this movie.
Yeah.
That I, as a pretentious jerk who loves to watch movies and loves to pretend I have big brain thoughts, even though my brain's smooth as marble.
Not your head, not your brain.
Anyway, every single thing he does is a misdirection. Every single beat set up about, like, oh, their mom died. Now that's resolved almost immediately. Oh, the alien showed up. That's resolved almost immediately. Oh, they're in quarantine. It's fine. Who cares? Like, because that's the thing, is the second quarantine ends immediately. The president's just like, we don't care. Yeah. So, like, every single thing that you would be its own central driving plot is a, like, throwaway. And even in this movie, one of the biggest things he does is to, like, shows mastery of the characters. All 5 of the kids are the same person. They're literally all unbelievable academic geniuses.
We see them, like, kind of proving that by playing that game.
Yeah,
that
they're
literally like, we could play this forever.
Yeah. But at the same time, he brings that up to show that he has such an understanding of his characters that he can make each one of them an academic genius in a completely different way.
Yeah.
One of them is being rebellious against the man. One of them just wants to be noticed. One of them is a go-getter, and she's being pushed to go get being good at this. And then the 2 main characters who fall in love are both people struggling with very strange home life and using space and education as an outlet.
And you can kind of see it in the way that their parents get on. I think they're both connecting because they both have the trauma from their parents, like, and their parents are connecting because they're very similar people in a weird way. And that we see how they all have, like, this kinship in the way of their intelligence, but also that every single character in this place is so interesting and fun to watch that you're just like, oh, how are they all going to get along? And that we kind of get an anticlimax of that. We don't get the happily ever after, they walk into the sunset and the camera closes in on them. It ends with all of them just leaving on the quarantine, and we're like, oh, I guess that was over. And it's reminiscent of, like, summer camp or something, or quarantine. Like this was an important part of your life. Now it's over. Move on. Yeah,
just to be clear, I think Keon's underselling it here. They literally leave off screen.
Yeah.
He goes to bed, like, they go, like, the stuff happens, and then the next shot is Jason Schwartzman's character waking up and being like, where is everyone?
We still have a bit of, like, they've left notes for him, nobody, it's not like people don't care, but that the entire feeling of the movie is that this is a small town that you get to visit for a little bit and then you leave. And it's, similar to quarantine or something, that it feels like a big part of your life. That, like, oh, people that I've never met before, I have no connection with, get me on a level that I didn't think other people would. And it's really nice. And that each of those, like, the parents have their own little thing going on. There's this school children that are there on a field trip. I guess teacher is the girl from Stranger Things.
Yeah. God, she's so delightful in that movie, though.
Yeah,
she's
it's so good.
Her and the cowboy, and they're, like, weird
Montana,
romance.
I think was his name.
And there's, like, no actual tension there. It's just happening.
Yeah, they're just having a good time.
Yeah.
And they're all, oh my God, when they all just started playing music, I was like, this is
also the
so
payoff
good.
for that, because they say, like, your parents will be watching from that tent over there. And so you see them go through all this stuff, and only in the final shot do you see the TV with the parents now watching.
Yeah,
through.
they're, like, close to the camera. God, it's so good. And you see all these little pastiches or, like, little moments of, like, what they're doing in this quirky town. I describe it as, like, references. You have this small town that reminded me of the town from Cars, which of course is about highway towns. They get in the quarantine and they become kind of the flavor of the week. Like,
they become the spectacle town where everyone is watching because they've heard this place is under quarantine because they were visited by literal aliens.
And the interesting thing about that is that they start as a spectacle town and then turn into another one where, oh, there was an asteroid here. Now we have a surveillance thing. We have an entire array of satellites. then the aliens come back, and my God, was that scene so fucking funny.
I'd have never seen anyone make a joke so perfect. Both when the alien shows up and they're like teasing this like very slow stop motion alien.
Yeah, like the ship comes down very slowly, very simply.
And then it's like, it's supposed to be this profound moment. It's like extraterrestrial life has come here to interact with humanity, and it steals a rock and leaves. And that's it. That's all that's going to happen.
And that it's like not even, it's just, it's shy like everybody else. Yeah. Everyone else in the movie that like his eyes are just like super wide looking around. It reminded me of Salad Fingers. Do you remember Salad Fingers? Yeah.
Very
weird,
creepy.
Weird design. And then he just like comes down on the thing, which like the weird the like drop thing reminded me of the little thing they put in the car that breaks the car. It was a weird reference, I guess.
Yeah.
He comes down, grabs it, picks it up, and is just kind of like, okay. And then the guy takes out the camera, and I'm like, oh, is something going to happen? And he's like,
and he poses with it. He poses with the rock.
And then he just gets back on, goes up, and that's it. And it's one of those non-moments where it's not even let down. It's just like, oh, what's going to happen? Nothing. We saw an alien. There was a UFO sighting. We have definitive proof that it happened. There's no curiosity about it. And then, my fucking God, I don't think I've had a bigger laugh than the moment where they're getting out of quarantine. They're getting ready to leave. Everybody's assembled there. And then immediately, like, Woodrow just goes, has that always been today's date? Immediately green, green color. Spaceship comes back, and then it comes back, puts down the rock, gets up, leaves exactly the same way, and they're like, fuck this, and then goes into straight up. There's the problem.
All those bullshit. Indiana Jones wide shots you're complaining about in the last video, they stuffed into this movie.
Exactly, and they're perfectly framed and composed and blocked.
Yeah.
And then similarly, that like it's not contested. The alien was here. The guy goes over, picks up the asteroid, and is like, in my mind, I'm like, oh, they're gonna have to decipher what this means. But it's so universally known. It's like, oh, they inventoried it. Then put it back. That's it. They just get it.
They're not going to explain it. This movie's almost over. We don't have time for this.
Yeah.
But there's like
these monumental discoveries are played like they're nothing.
But that's even in the like first time you see the atomic explosion. They're like, what's that? It's like, if we want to take this movie as being like commentary on cinema itself, it's saying like even your big set pieces, even your Marvel movies are just the nuclear explosion in the background. It's just this thing that should be awe-inspiring, but it's just so common that you do not care. I think you described it one time as Futurama, right?
Yes.
Like not just an excellent show, but also like, how do you describe it?
The idea is like, and this is similar, that like the World's Fairs started around this time in like the late 50s. It started a long time ago.
For a long time.
It's been happening for a long time.
Yes.
But I'm saying that it kind of hit its stride and got people to come out. Is that like the world of tomorrow and all this stuff that...
Especially the atomic age world of tomorrow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the idea is that all these appliances that you're seeing for the first time ever in this giant showroom, there's a bunch of people behind you, will now become mundane within a week. Like, you've seen it here. This is great. Don't worry. Within a year, you will be able to order it to your house and have it in your living room. And this new technology you would have never been able to fathom will become as mundane as the fire.
Yeah, you'll have a robot with a claw arm awkwardly groping a woman in your own. Was that E.B. White?
That was E.B. White's essay.
That is deep cut E.B. White nonsense.
Thank you. That's for all the IB kids out there.
Yes.
Jesus.
I'm sorry. I feel so bad for you.
Yeah. Don't mean to bring up the trauma.
Yeah.
And similarly, that like I love to bring this up, that the show Futurama is so perfect of a distillation of it, because of course all this crazy Fry goes to the future. He's like, wow, look at all this stuff. Within a week, it's as if he was still back in the year 2000. But also that the intro to, and I've talked about this on several things, but I need to say it on this channel at least once. The intro to Futurama, when it first came out, was the most mind-blowing thing I'd ever seen. Oh, Simpsons characters in 3D? Holy shit. I would distinctly tune in just to watch that. As a kid, I didn't care about the show. Yeah. I was like, that's amazing. Now, who cares? Within a year, that intro was outdated.
Yeah.
And it's incredible to me that I remember being like so blown away and inspired by that it doesn't matter anymore. Like, and that's, and they probably spent so much time and effort on that intro at the time. Now it doesn't matter. And it's similar to all of this, that like the movie is very similar in the way that these kids are solving, children are solving such huge problems and creating basically weapons or like tools for the government. And everybody that's there is like, wow, here's a little ribbon. Good job.
Yeah.
Here's a $5,000 check. Like,
Well, I mean, that's still a lot of money back then. But,
well, yes, but you know, like they're creating a death ray and they're shooting like
yeah, they have a
projections on the
jetpack,
moon.
a death ray, advertisements on the moon. That kid is literally the worst person in all of history.
Yeah, goddamn
He
it,
invented moon ads.
bullshit.
He's the real villain, and no one talks about it.
To which they even mentioned that it's just like, yeah, I mean, cool that you did that, but you might have started a war with like China or Russia or whoever that also wanted to shoot stuff onto the moon. Like they thought that was an act of aggression.
Yeah.
Projecting the American flag onto the moon.
Yeah, but to your point about Futurama, like that's the point, is the mundanity of nuclear explosions,
Yes.
laser rifles, jetpacks. Like they even got to the point where like everything is so played that they have vending machines for doling out land.
Yes, exactly. And that finally, the biggest nail in the coffin for this is the fact that, yeah, we're here at this expo of the smartest kids on the planet, doing all of this crazy stuff for America, and that aliens show up. There is photographic evidence. It gets out. The media hears about it. They put on a fair. It becomes the news of the day. Within a week, it's dropped.
Yeah.
Like people don't give that much of a shit. So much that the alien comes back, and instead of doing another week of quarantine, like you said, they're just like, the president's like, no, it's fine. Nobody cares anymore. All of your stuff has been declassified. And they have the big like declassified thing on there that it shows not only that age, but also the age we're living in. That like I mean, I know that Nope talked about this a lot, but like there was footage of UFOs that were declassified, and now everybody has gotten over it. Not that they could all be like, you know, visual blips or whatever. But regardless, like there is news every day that is like, holy shit, this is earth shattering 50 years ago. Now, who cares?
Okay, now if you want, we can start on going back up through the layers of the onion.
Exactly.
Now level out to the black and white, the story around the story. Because like instead of the guy finishing the play, he walks out, talks to Adrian Brody, he's like, I don't know what my motivation is, and then walks out onto the fire escape. And Margot Robbie basically says the end of the play. The Moon Man, and then I was supposed to be in it to do this, and like giving us, like, they don't show us that. It's very anticlimactic because they don't show us that. In the same way that they immediately hand wave away every single thing in the story, even the things around the story get hand waved away. Like you would have an entire movie just about the fact that Scarlett Johansson's character is getting screwed over by her mentor director. And then instead that is like all handled off screen using just context clues.
And and an element that we didn't mention about Jason Schwartzman's character is that he's a war photographer.
Yeah.
So both him and Scarlett Johansson's characters, you know, being the parents of these geniuses, are probably, they have a lot of baggage they have to deal with individually. And probably they're leaking that down to their kids in one way or the other. And to the point where he just couldn't even tell his kids for 3 weeks that their mom had died and that he kept their ash in Tupperware.
Yeah.
And when
That's the funniest part.
Yeah,
that's the other thing, is how good this movie is at starting a scene, and by the end of it, because of the way they immediately pay things off, recontextualizing the scene. So you see him and he's like holding this Tupperware that you assume just has like a snack for the girls, and they're hugging, and the son says, is our mom in there? It's like, yes, this is her ash. Like obviously her ashes, but
And then there was like an awkward silence, and he's just like smacking it against his knee. It's ridiculous. And similarly, that like if we're going back up the layers, that I think that layer has a really interesting thing to say about two things. One, being an actor or being somebody that's like perpetuating an idea, but not actually knowing what that idea is. You know, you're telling a story. You think that you understand whatever's happening. You've been brought on to do something. You're like, I don't really get what this is about. Like, I don't feel like I'm in control of the message that I'm saying. But also, two, something similar in the book, The Fault in Our Stars, where the character is like dying of cancer, and all they want to know is if the book that they have read, if their ideas about it are true. And so they go and try to talk to the writer, and the writer won't tell them anything. And John Green, that wrote it, has said that like, yeah, after I write a book and after like other people write books, it's not my story to tell anymore. You get to interpret it however you want. And this movie has a lot of that, where there's like, a thing I heard online is that there's no theme to the movie. It could have nothing. It could all be an anticlimax. So you get to draw from it what you want. And in particular, that fits in with Edward Norton's character. The writer died. So we have no idea what the point of the play is. Like, Jason Schwartzman's character says that he's like, I don't know what the fuck this is about. Like, what even is this? And the one scene that would have explained it, that Edward Norton said that he would do, each character will have their own individual dream that will recontextualize what they're about. no, that's fine. We'll scrap it. And so they get rid of it. And like you said, Margot Robbie's character recounts it back to him so he can kind of rethink it and refigure it out. It's about the mom that had died, his wife in the play, is basically just talking to him and trying to comfort him. And then he finally takes a photo of her. And then she says, is it going to turn out? And he's like, they always do. And so it's just a nice, okay, the problem, whatever this problem is, whatever the situation, it will be resolved because I can get past this. And I have my wife kind of like, you know, out there in the ether on a star somewhere. And even though I'm an atheist, it's happening. But who knows? It doesn't fucking matter. The fucking director, the writer died. He won't be able to tell you. It's whatever you can piece together from what you've seen, the art itself.
Yeah, and then if I can just get a little up my own ass about this, sure. I think that also plays into like his comment. We're going to, because it seems very much the Wes Anderson is I'm tired of coming up with meaning. You come up with your own meaning. I don't care. I feel like very much the point of that layer up. Sure. Whereas the character's trying to understand their motivations is also commentary on each one of us living our lives every day.
Yes.
Why do we say hi? Why do we do the things we do?
Sure.
Are we okay with playing this character? Why do we do this? Like, even to the point where they're like, we're trapped in quarantine for 7 days. Well, why are we trapped in quarantine? Why are we listening to these arbitrary rules that say we have to be here?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, because there is understood some sort of risk or protocol that should be executed in association with this incredibly unlikely thing happening. Yeah. Or we are very interested in like keeping face with each other, and we put more emphasis on how we build our relationship with each other rather than just always acting out our most surface level emotions. And then there's like a kind of like, if you want to get into it, a bit of a back and forth in the play itself about like everyone saying too inside the mask or letting the mask slip too much, both in terms of Jason Schwartzman, his son, and 3 daughters, and also the dad wrestling with the fact that their daughter died. And it's like, I'm grieving. It's like, so am I. And but both of them are completely stoic. And then also the alien showing up and everything going buck wild, and people is like, screw it, we're making out now, we're doing whatever. And it's like, these are 2 extremes that are both, to most people, unacceptable.
How much of it is that? It's how much like you're contextualizing your life, that all of the kids, like we said, they're playing to their parents. And that similarly, oh my God, I know that it's stupid, but I watched a TikTok it's one of those things where it's like, you should talk to people more about this, where it's the idea that he's like, one of the things that I love to ask people is, 1, what is the life you've always wanted for yourself? And 2, what is the life your parents always wanted for you? And 3, how do they differ or are the same? And it's similar that like these parents are like pushing them to be geniuses, and of course they are, but they're acting out in different ways because they're trying to regain some composure of their own life. And similarly to Jason Schwartzman, where he's like, I don't know what this whole play's about. What's even going on? And similarly that the government is playing with all the people in the place, including God, what is that actor's name that's like the general? And he gives that like speech about his life. It's like chapter 1. God, yes. I was a child.
Oh, so good.
So amazing. And then we have Tilda Swinton, who's similar, where she's just kind of there. Like she doesn't seem to question anything that's happening. They're like, hey, what is that about? And she's like, we actually have no idea. And then he's like, it seems like solar calendar. Oh, is it always today? Like, the kids are the only ones asking questions.
Yeah.
The adults are the ones just playing by the rule book.
What's also funny because her character, literally, the kids steal all of her equipment to try and like talk to the aliens. And she's not mad that they touched her equipment. They were mad that they didn't include her on the heist.
Exactly, yeah. We see that theme of like just not knowing and kind of going with the flow and what that means about you and what you actually want to do versus other people's expectations of you.
Yeah.
And that leads into the one other thing I wanted to talk about, which kind of leads into the element of Bryan Cranston at the very, very end, or edges of this story, the last layer of the onion, which is the difference between, or the uses of postmodernism and metamodernism. So postmodernism was kind of that movement like after World War II, where it's just like, hey, we've kind of done everything. Like, let's start breaking down what modernism means. Was that a postmodern piece where it says, this is not a pipe? That one?
I think so.
Or is that metamodern? But like the idea that we have gotten past modernism, and so now everything is now playing back on modernism. We are now saying this is a piece about a piece, or a piece about society. But then we also have metamodernism, which is now. So we're basically like the 50s postmodern time. Now we're in the metamodern time, where it's like, okay, well, this is a piece about a piece about a piece, you know, like the entire movie is very metamodern, and that's something that we are embroiled in now. Fucking Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Yeah.
This isn't a movie unto itself. This is a movie that's part of a franchise, that's part of a conglomerate, that's a huge corporation. And the fact that they said the word capitalism in it is just beguiling, because this is a capitalist organization. Like, what do you have to say about capitalism? You fucking one of the biggest companies on the planet. So all of these elements playing into the fact that this movie has so much to say in so many different avenues, because we are seeing a postmodern time through the lens of a metamodern time, and reconciling what that means for us, which one you want to dissect. That these people are living in an age where they don't really have, they're not really dealing with art.
Yeah.
You know, what they're doing is utilitarian. They are creating scientific things and not giving themselves an artistic avenue by which to do something that creates rebellion. But then we're seeing the metamodern text about it.
Well, I mean, okay, so just to be clear, the postmodern is literally the Asteroid City play.
Yes.
That's all in color. And the metamodern is the black and white around them.
Yes.
Just to make sure I got those ideas
Exactly,
straight.
yeah.
But yeah, to your point, even in the story, in Asteroid City, every single use of art is in service of science.
Exactly.
You're not allowed to artistically create this story. You're creating this, like, even when the kids are creating music and stuff, it is about this scientific discovery of aliens.
Exactly. And that the stories that they tell, that the general tells, is a step-by-step recounting of his life.
Yeah.
There's no like fluff on it. There's nothing artistic about it. He's not having any fun. He's just like, I was born to this. I did this. I did that. That's
In
it.
chapter 1.
Yes, exactly. Very simple and to the point. And I think that that's what Jason Schwartzman's getting at. So this is a piece of art about science, about a lack of art. And that's what I think the very end is getting at. The very end of the movie, that right before, and we hadn't mentioned that, like, they literally tell you when the acts begin and end. Say Act 1, scenes 1 through 3. Act 1, scenes 6, the 4 through 6. Then Act 2, like the end of Act 1, intermission optional, stuff like that. And that we see, like, this is when certain things should happen. So right before the epilogue, we have a moment of all of the characters. He, like, literally, Edward Norton says, hey, all of you are going to have talk about the dream that your character's going to have. I want to get that from you. And all of them just stand up, and we have the alien played by Jeff Goldblum, that they all say, you can't wake up if you don't go to sleep.
Yeah.
And what I think that means in the context of this movie is that when you sleep, you're dreaming, right? Like, your brain is doing a creative thing that you need to interpret and go through. But being awake is reality, right? So you can't have an artistic, like, element to yourself. You can't, like, produce art if you're only being like a rigid person. And I think that that's the point of Asteroid City. Everybody's being a rigid person until they can't. So nobody's dreaming. And the dream that they're having is the recontextualing of the story. The dream answers the story. The dream that they're supposed to have at the end that Margot Robbie talks about is the resolution. But none of them are willing to dream because they're all being big boy adults. So it's the idea that you can't live in such a realistic environment all the time. You need some whimsy. And if you don't, then you're going to drive yourself fucking crazy in quarantine. That's my interpretation of it. Can't wake up if you don't go to sleep is like, well, you can't be silly if you don't let yourself. You'll always live in this, like, dour reality. So stop taking shit so serious.
Yeah, I think actually that jives a lot with how I understood it, because the way I thought of it was, you can't wake up if you don't go to sleep means like, if you're not willing to suspend your disbelief.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think that's also a commentary on how to take in his film. If you're not willing to suspend your disbelief and exist in the space that this film is trying to invite you to, then any criticism you have of the film, any of the waking up that you have later, you will just be griping. You won't be, like, taking time to really think about what you took in.
And especially that's what I love about every interpretation I've seen online, is how much people are just like, well, this is what I thought. This is how I thought about this stuff. In that it's all, you know, your body digesting it, your brain digesting what you've seen and how that relates to you. And what I love about stuff like Everything Everywhere All at Once and all these other movies that have so many different like pieces to them, similarly to Across the Spider-Verse, all these other, like, movies that are about several things, is that when you get out of it, you talk to somebody else and they're like, oh, I didn't even get that. When we got out of the movie, we were just like, what the fuck was that even about? And so each of us kind of took our shot at, like, what the movie was about. And it was really interesting to be like, oh, I didn't fucking think about that. Oh, shit, that's crazy. And that's the joy of his movies, is that on the surface, they're very simple. They're almost fucking David Lynchian in their absurdity. But there's a lot of fun to be had in like how funny everything's paced and how weird everybody acts. But then there's still that element of like, what do the things that you're seeing in it say about you? What does the fact that you grappled with the fact that the kids are rebelling against their parents say about like you and what you're going through? What does the stuff about everybody being kept in quarantine say about you? And that I love that. I love that this is the first time I think I've gone to one of his movies and really tried to mull over and chew what I saw, especially because, and I don't think that it's a stretch to say, he probably wants you to do that because the main character says, what the fuck is this about?
Yeah.
I don't even get it.
That's one of my favorite things about this movie is exactly what you're getting at. Like normally when you see a movie, you kind of have a good sense of like, what was the plot? What was the outcome? What was meaning? But imagine making a film so loose that literally everyone watching it could in some way apply their own unique life context to it and get a slightly different interpretation of what is the meaning of the film because you focused on a different character, or you interpreted the overall message in a different way, or you have something like that. It's nice to see, instead of a like the outcome of a movie being us all agreeing it was good or it was bad or it's about this or about that, is like could be about anything.
Yeah,
whatever.
It's a mirror, whatever you want it to be about. The two other elements I wanted to mention were one, the Roadrunner. Do you have any fucking idea what that might have been about?
Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner?
I know, but like, what about it? Like, what does that say about this fucking thing?
So I don't actually think it had to do with Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. I think it was it's like a meme. Like almost everyone, at least everyone our age and older.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said
meep,
that.
meep.
Yeah, well, that's what a Roadrunner does. That's the actual sound a Roadrunner is supposed to make.
What the fuck, really?
It's something similar to that. I think, like, in one way, it is that meme. I was expecting at some point a coyote or wolf or something to show up in the background.
Like, the nuke happening in the background could have been Wile E. Coyote trying to catch the Roadrunner.
You're right. Maybe that was him.
And yeah, I would say that there's probably an element of that, of like, you know, every week the coyote's trying to catch the Roadrunner. And that similarly, we get these cops and robbers happening in the background that, like, is consistent. Like, it's been a week that they're trying to catch these cops and robbers. That I think
they're going through the quarantine too.
Yeah, and that's the part of that. It's about mundanity.
Yeah,
all this life-changing stuff is happening in the city. No one else cares. There's still bomb like
this nuke still goes off every day.
Exactly.
The guys still drive through town shooting at each other every day.
Yes. Similarly, I really love what you said about how much it's about like control and your own control and stuff like that. That one of the songs that plays in the background that I like just turn to you, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I love this song, but it's crazy in the background, is the Company Store song.
Yeah.
Which is similar about like control, like this group, I dropped my phone, about this group that's above you, that's controlling everything you do. And so that you have no
agency.
Yeah. You're just like, I owe my soul.
Everything
to the
you
store.
do belongs to the company.
Yeah.
Everything that you receive is because the company has been generous enough to sell it to you.
Yes.
Every part of your life is going to be controlled by the company. Just like being in this small town, every part of their life is being controlled by the government.
Yep, exactly. I think that this movie's pretty good. Was there any last minute thing you wanted to bring up?
Something that I really liked about it is how it deals with this idea of masks and control and self-control, and how an animal caught in a trap will gnaw off its own leg. What will you do?
Like,
that's right, Dune.
God,
It's all Dune. Bye.